more specific compound question. Can you win at the highest level without using tren? Asking for a friend, smiley face.
Yeah, I do believe you can. There's a lot of people that don't really respond well to that drug. Is it a used drug in our world? Especially at the highest levels? Absolutely. Can you do it without it? I do believe you can. Okay. Yeah. Is it a tool that gets used because it offers definitely a lot of benefit? For sure. But we also need to realize the stronger the benefit, chances are the stronger the risk. And when you're talking about tren, that's a very, very real statement, right? It's not a light compound. It's not to be taken lightly. If you're somebody that's not in the bodybuilding world, do I think you should ever use tren? Absolutely not. If you're not trying to compete at the highest level and you're not trying to take this as far as you possibly can in the world of bodybuilding, I don't believe trenbolone is a drug you should even consider using.
Can we break off that for a second then? Because you blew my mind when you explained this to me. Can you tell people what it was developed for? Maybe they'll understand why you'd put this in yourself.
Well, so originally it was literally, I believe it was Finaplex, and it was tablets that were put in cows to basically make super cows. And I mean, when we eat steak, when we eat meat, it's muscle meat, right? Yeah. So the more muscle a cow has, the more meat you will get from that animal. And that's realistically what these pellets were originally made for. They were implanted into cows and fed to cows, and you got freaky cows from it. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of bodybuilding drugs that actually have really cool backgrounds and were invented for
other purposes,
specific purposes over time, whether it was during wars way back when, which there's, like I said, when you understand drugs and you actually research them and know where they came from. Yeah, there's a lot of shit like that actually, right? You look at like some of these fat burners, and I won't specifically say the names because I know people will Google it and be terrified and or try it or whatever, but they were literally invented to keep soldiers from dying in the cold. Yeah. Because it would keep them so warm, right? That warm up their core temperature.
Vibrating so much that it's warming your body up. Don't Google this shit, you guys. Right? Just stay the hell away.
It's not something you play around with, but is there a time and place in this world, in my world of bodybuilding? Mm-hmm. For sure, when you understand application, you understand dosage, you understand how to use the drug, whether that comes to half-lives and all that kind of stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Which probably goes over most of your heads. And if you don't understand those things, don't put anything in your body, because you need to understand those first and foremost, and at least have somebody in your corner that does, and have some sort of guidance for it.
Yeah, the medical background, not just a physique that you want to look like.
100%.
Understand why it's doing it, because like he said, this trend started out with cattle, and you can be like, cool, that just proves that it puts on more muscle. Do you know the lifespan of cattle for the commercial industry? About 20 months. So
Facts.
that's not something you fuck with unless you are educated.
Yeah, like if you were 19 years old and had a lifespan of 20 months from that point onwards, knowing in 20 months you're dying, fuck yeah, put whatever you want on my body.
Live the best. do the Ziz route. Go lines of coke off a stripper's ass, trend in yours, and just go for it. But God,
that's not reality. So,
your thoughts on users who claim natty status?
That's one thing that actually really bugs me. I made a decision the second I put a needle in me and knew that I was going that route, that I would own it and be upfront about it. Now, that doesn't mean I need to walk around parading it, but if somebody asked me, I made a decision, I would never say no.
The responsibility of them not thinking, oh, I can do that.
Right, and this goes into a million different avenues. It's like, okay, well, let's look at, and Ty and I have had these conversations with Jordan shoes and stuff, and it's like, why are you buying fake Jordans? Because you want to be a part.
I hate that world.
You want to be a part of some club. Well, if you want to be a part of that club that bad,
you got to earn it.
Work hard enough and earn it to join that club, just like the Rolex we were talking about and stuff, right? Yeah. Fake Rollies, all this kind of stuff. It exists everywhere. Yes. If you want to take the shortcuts and get those things, you absolutely can. But if you're going to take steroids, it's no different. You want to be a part of a club that walks around with a sidewalk crack and fucking physique, and you're not willing to say that you're taking things. And the reality is, anybody that understands these drugs and knows a thing about a thing or two will know that you're on PEDs. There's certain looks and certain things that PEDs create in a body, and it's very, very easy to identify.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think, to be honest, for lack of a better term, I think they're fucking clowns. If you're walking around and saying you're natural, and there's a lot of people on higher levels of this industry that are doing this, and I think it's horrible. I think it's like, you're creating a vision for some of these young kids, these 16, 17-year-old boys and girls that think they can become you and do it naturally. And being in a position that I'm in, where I'm the coach and I help people get to those physiques, and hearing people come to me saying, I want to achieve this.
Liver King.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And I want to achieve this, but I'm not willing to use PEDs. And it's like, hey, I'm not here to convince you to use PEDs, but I'm here to let you know that person uses PEDs.
Yeah.
Right? And like,
doesn't mean don't go train hard, but
Dwayne
just understand.
Johnson.
Oh, God.
A prime example. I was asked yesterday if I thought Dwayne Johnson used PEDs. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Of course he uses PEDs. There's like, the guy had
300 pounds in
the
his
guy
life.
had gyno when he was a wrestler.
Yeah.
You don't just get gyno and be jacked. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of different pieces of that. And when it comes to the bodybuilding world, I mean, this bugs me even more because so when it comes to the federation that I coach in, which is the Canadian Physique Alliance, which is kind of the highway to the IFBB Pro League, and I coach athletes in the Pro League as well. I have a good handful of pros that I work with. There is a natural stream to that, where you do get piss tested when you win, and then you go to the next level, and you go to the national level, and you get piss tested if you win at the national level. If you win at the national level, you get your pro card. And then you go the natural pro route, which realistically, those pros are still IFBB pros, and they can compete in the open shows. The real ones who are natural choose not to because they understand what that looks like and that they will get fucking smoked.
Oh, yeah.
The playing
50,
field is not
60
fair.
Pounds, yeah.
100%, right? But
and those are already the genetic potential elite of the natural guys, and they couldn't even compete against someone who's not even ranked.
100%. And then you go to these natural national shows where people are competing for a pro card. I know coaches specifically that will put people on drugs and understand drugs enough that they can manipulate things, remove them in time so they're not detectable. And unfortunately, that's a real part of this thing too. And I really wish that would leave our sport, because I've been the guy that had athletes get second. It happened to me twice at nationals to athletes that I knew were enhanced because I knew who they were coached by. And it ended up turning out that they had told people they were enhanced and this and that, right? Even just this past season, there was a female competed at a natural pro show, and I think it was 5 weeks earlier, was backstage talking about what she was running to an athlete of mine at an open, non-tested show that was also a national show. And we're talking about a very, very good athlete. But again, it's the way that I look at it is this. If you're going to take drugs and go into a natural show, you're an absolute loser, because you're not willing, you can't win at the level when it's an even playing field. So you're willing to stack the cards in your favor and go in that side of things to get a pro card, and then what? Now you're gonna go to the pro level and get fucking smoked because you can't even win at the national level where it's other enhanced athletes. Good luck.
Yeah.
So yeah, that I have a bone to pick with that one, as you can tell, and I can't stand it. Right? It drives me absolutely fucking nuts. Embrace it. If you're gonna do this, that's one of the decisions you have to make, and there's a lot of things you have to think about and decisions you have to make when you go this route. That's a very strong one of them. When people ask you if you're enhanced, you should own that and say yes, because if you're scared to, you're not ready to do it. And
you're embarrassed. You're also admitting that you can't do what you're trying to promote.
100%.
That's what I hate about social media is you got these guys. I don't care whether you're lying or not, but if you've built up a 2 million follower, and let's say you're a guy and you've got all these young boys looking up to you, and you're selling your brand, you're making money, lying to them
off of the idea that you're
that
something
they can
you're
look
not.
like you, yeah. And that to me, I could never get away with that in my business.
No.
So I don't know how someone can go to bed at night and say, yeah, I just lied to a bunch of people to get paid.
It doesn't make sense to me, and it never will. Guys like us just can't wrap our head around it, and that's why I try not to lose too much sleep over it.
Yeah.
But like I said, when I see it, I definitely will speak up against it. And if people ask me, even online, I'll tag a person and call them out. I've done it before, because I have no problem with it. And if you want to come back to me, if you want to sit in a call and go, you want to sit at this table with me and go back and forth about it, I will any day of the week.
Been in the game too long to be lied to. Yeah. All right. What to take for bad rotators and knees, motocross and labor work for decades? Is that something that they can help to?
Yeah, for sure. Especially if we're talking PEDs here, right? Something, and I know people that are natural. And haven't taken performance-enhancing drugs per se for the idea of enhancing performance or enhancing physique, but have been dealing with injuries for a long time. And peptides, there's a world of PEDs that kind of branches into peptides, which are like research chemicals
Okay.
that are used per se in like the medical field, but not actually used in the medical field. But there's some really cool things. So like the two I'm speaking of specifically are BPC 157, which is short for body protecting compound 157, and TB 500. Very, very good. They call it the Wolverine healing stack. I've used it myself. I've used it in many athletes. I have a really cool example of what this stuff can do, and I don't mind sharing.
Please do.
I will for sure. But so there's a lot of studies on these things actually. There are
Was
studies
this what
on,
you had told me when I messed my shoulder up?
with my hamstring.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. So there's these peptides. For a long story short, they basically just speed up the healing processes in the body. They drive blood flow. So there's a lot of studies that show what these things do. But realistically, one of the coolest studies, they actually removed an Achilles tendon from rats, and they were using peptides to create healing and a healing atmosphere in these rats. Well, the rats actually regrew an Achilles tendon.
That blows my mind.
Which is mind-blowing, but it creates cell formation, right? And you basically, he rebuilt structural tendons and ligaments
Didn't
that
repair
were
it, literally
required.
came back.
Yes, and they do repair things, right? Because even if you look at a tear, a pretty severe tear, well, what needs to happen there? You technically do need to regrow pieces of that thing to form the bond and strengthen over time, right? So that's what these can do. Now, do they solve every problem? No. I mean, I have problems right now I'm dealing with for the last long period of time, which are just fucking pissing me off, for lack of a better term.
You still go put 5 plates on the fucking bar.
100%, because that's just what I know how to do. Probably a problem, but hey, here we are.
Gotta admire that dedication.
And like I said, I mean, they don't work magically for everything, because I will be completely transparent. I am using them right now. And am I instantly fixed overnight after a week or two of use? No. It still takes time and other modalities, but they work. So going into my situation that we spoke about with my hamstring, I was doing a stiff leg deadlift, and I was pretty strong at the time. I was at the bottom of the stiff leg deadlift, and I just felt my left hamstring completely unravel, like one of those yellow ropes that's kind of twined together. When it gets old, it unravels. Well, I felt my hamstring do that at the bottom of the movement. My right one was like tight in the stretch. The left one was tight, and then all of a sudden I felt the left one go super loose and lengthen. And it kind of popped and felt horrible. It was burning. It was bright red within minutes.
So
swollen.
yours hurt. See, mine didn't. I felt nothing. I just couldn't move.
Yeah.
I couldn't bring my left leg forward.
Mine hurt. But it was more so like a burning sensation. And within a day or two, it was black and blue from my ass cheek to the bottom of my kneecap, which spread all the way to my calf, and the whole back of my leg was black and blue. I was working with a gentleman named I can't even remember his name right now. It was Jeff, but he owns a
If you remember, we'll get producer
Yeah.
Mac to toss it in there.
It was, that's okay. It's not the end of the world. He owns a clinic in Edmonton, and he had worked with many Olympians and stuff like that. I went in to see him. We got imaging done. Sure enough, there was a grade 2 tear. So my hamstring was kind of just, it was torn, but it was still intact. It wasn't completely torn where I needed surgery to reattach. But it was hanging on for dear life, basically, at this point, I was told. And he got in there with his hands and was feeling it. He's like, oh, yeah, what we saw on the cameras is real. And I was told realistically I shouldn't load it for about 12 weeks at all, like no training that hamstring directly, 8 to 12 weeks at least, but we were going to assess as I was healing. I was using peptides at the time. I was using a little bit of growth hormone as well. And I was healing very fast, to the point that I was seeing him weekly. We were working on stuff, and we were about 4 weeks in, and he was like, what are you doing? And I was like, what do you mean? Like, scared that I had fucked something up? And he was like, you are like healing crazy fast. I can feel it in there. And I was like, when I told him, and he's a professional, and in that world, like, he's not going to tell you, yeah, do those things. But it was like, I can tell you that whatever you're doing is working. So don't
advise it. Yeah.
Don't stop doing what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing. But I'm not telling you what to do. Basically, is kind of the way that conversation went. And I kept doing what I was doing, and within 8 weeks I set a PR on stiff leg deadlifts. So I actually pulled a heavier load than I had torn my hamstring with 8 weeks later, when I was barely able to walk when it first happened. And that's not normal healing speed. That's not normal healing process. So when I say that these things work, they work very well. Now, would I say there's a ton of risk involved in using them? To be completely honest, I wouldn't. This is something that I've actually used in my mother. and I would use in people when they're in pain and cannot relieve pain from a certain type of issue. I'm not going to get into everything, but you're talking like tennis elbow, golfer's elbow, those type of things that are just inflammatory and tendonitis and those kind of things that are consistently, I mean, if you're in our world, you're moving all the time, you're training all the time, and taking that time completely away is really tough to do. This does speed up that healing process. So again, you need to understand how to use it. You need to understand the quality of stuff, where it's coming from and whatnot, but I do believe they work, and they work very well.
Okay. And just as this one I can actually give a little bit of feedback on. I'll get producer Mac to put the picture in right now. And what that was when I tore the membranosus off the tendinosis basically back in 2017. He recovered in 8 weeks. I still, to this day, 7 years later, cannot go over 4 plates on a deadlift. It just doesn't even lift.
Yeah.
I have a hole basically under my ass on the left side where, because I didn't go back in for surgery, I just kind of let the muscle die. When your life's too busy, you do stupid things like don't get surgery. That we're going on 7 years this year. So that 8 weeks is nuts.
Yeah, and I had been told, like, this is something that will come back and it will bother you for probably the rest of your life. You will have minor tears here and there and you'll feel discomfort. To be completely honest, I haven't, and I can stiff like
That's
deadlift
awesome.
500 plus pounds. And
I watched them.
No problem at all, right? I mean, it's hard, obviously, but that's one of those things that, like, I don't have issues with that. Do I feel the odd, like, clicking in the back of my hamstring and stuff here and there? For
You're getting
sure.
old.
Exactly. I just attribute that to age, not that specific injury.
Yeah. All right, next one. Do SARMs serve a real purpose?
I don't believe so. I don't ever use them, and I've transformed some pretty nasty physiques, as you've seen. I've turned people from amateurs into pros. I've coached pros on some of the best stages in the world, and hopefully this year on the biggest stage in the world. Mm-hmm. And I will never put a SARM in one of those people. I believe the side effects are just as daunting as steroids, and you'll get a lot more bang for your buck out of steroids. And there's been a lot more research done on steroids. The reality is, like we talked about, a lot of these steroids were invented for certain purposes. Yeah. And there is a lot of literature on human trials using them. Whether they were approved, whether they ended up being used by the medical community, a lot of them actually did. Whether that was for AIDS patients or, you know what I mean?
Wasting, muscle wasting.
The SARMs are ones that didn't pass. And they actually...
that's scary.
And there wasn't a lot of research and data on them that is quite promising. So, in my opinion, why are we going that route? I've seen what it does to blood work. It's just as bad as any other steroid will do if you're using them in a manner that will elicit results.
Are they injectable or oral?
Oral. And that's
why people are doing it. Okay,
people
I couldn't
love
figure
them.
out why they...
I believe you can get injectable ones as well, but a lot of them are oral, which is why it's very easy, because if people are scared of the needle. And it's like, if you're scared of the needle, run from this fucking world and this conversation then, because at the end of the day, it's not gonna work out the way you want. There's no oral tab of testosterone that's going to work the same way an injectable testosterone will. You know what I mean? There's creams, there's this and that. I was offered testosterone cream for my own HRT. I said, fuck that. If you give that to me, I'm walking out of the room and throwing it in the garbage. And I did just that. I went and got a bottle of test like I knew how to do and put it in my body and got my blood work done and made sure my levels were good by myself. And that's a whole nother conversation. But, I mean, I don't want to be hopping in bed with my wife covered in testosterone cream and that going onto her skin.
Oh, fuck, I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, it's a real thing.
Man.
The skin is porous, right?
Yeah.
And just because you're going to absorb some of that doesn't mean somebody else won't if they're in contact with you.
Didn't even think about that.
And that's a real thing, right? You're talking about a lot of these type of creams that they prescribe and stuff because, again, it's taboo to use a needle and inject oils and this and that. But it's like, why do some people get the injectables and some don't? I mean, in my case, I was treated like a drug addict because I had some serious heart complications, and I was open and honest and told them that I used steroids, and they're like, oh, you're a fucking junkie, you're a drug addict, we're not giving you another vial of testosterone to dose your testosterone. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to do it anyways because I'm a junkie, but the reality is I understand those drugs better than they do for a lot of people, right?
And now that you explained it to me, people who put shit just because they don't put it through a needle, when you put it internally through your digestion, you got your liver, your kidneys.
Yeah, 100%.
Holy shit, some of that stuff's worse.
Absolutely, 100%. And I can speak to, there's oral steroids that you take that are fucking horrible for you. And
what would be the worst one then? Just throw it out so people understand. Halotestin is a very, very aggressive androgenic drug. And
it will completely fucking obliterate your liver and so forth very quick. Now, do we use it in bodybuilding? Absolutely. Should you use it if you're not bodybuilding or powerlifting? Absolutely not. It's very, very taxing. Now, the way we use it in bodybuilding, very short bursts of time for a very specific goal, and we understand what it's doing and why we would use it. So we put it in for a short period of time, let it do its thing, pull it out, fix the problems it created, because the nice piece is the liver is the most resilient organ in the human body.
Yeah.
But it's only resilient so long. Because if you keep
can't kill
fucking
it.
blasting it and blasting it and blasting it, you will run into problems, right? And again, you talk about long-term issues with bodybuilding and PED usage, dialysis. People go on they have to get kidney issues because your kidneys filter your blood. When you're injecting something, it's going into your blood. Water balance in the body. A lot of people, and one of the biggest reasons people have to go on dialysis is uncontrolled blood pressure, because your kidneys also filter your water levels in your body. And if you're bloated all the time and holding a ton of water and your blood pressure's through the roof, that's a very large stressor on your kidney. Yes. Now you're going to take a bunch of other things and you're going to stress your liver out at the same time, right? Now you see why this can be dangerous. Now again, can you do it properly? Yeah. Take care of your kidneys and your liver by not abusing the drugs.
Not drinking on the weekend on top of all of this.
If you're somebody that's drinking every weekend or going out and partying on the weekends, stay the fuck away from drugs and my industry, please.
Yeah.
Go train. There's nothing wrong with being the person that's a weekend warrior and works out during the week and takes care of their health Monday to Friday, and on weekends goes and has beers or whatever. That's fine. If you want to do that, that's up to you. I don't really care. But don't come in my world and pretend to be what we are.
Hardcore, yeah.
And use the drugs to look good at the parties you go to. I think that's fucked up.
Again, Google's is.
But then again, yeah, exactly.
It was the best 2 years of his life,
Perfect example.
And that's when it ended.
Right, and these are the people that get hurt. These are the people going out ripping lines of blow, doing Molly on the weekends, and hammering all these drugs all the time, and creating an environment where they're very body dysmorphic. They can't take their shirt off without being on drugs and so forth, and that leads to a very toxic mindset and person
and body
per se. And then it's like now you don't only have an addiction to whatever the fuck stimulants and all these other drugs. You have an addiction to steroids as well, which is a real thing. Right, so yeah, that's on.
We'll drop it there. He's getting mad at people. Yeah, completely get that. All right. Oh, producer Mac.
I have a question.
Yes.
You talked about something called a SARM.
SARM.
Whatever you were talking about just a minute ago.
Yeah.
I forget what it breaks down to.
Selective androgen receptor modulator.
Selective androgen.
So basically, what they say SARMs can do is they selectively act on androgen receptors. So basically what it's saying is it's going to pick and choose in your body which androgen receptors it works on. An androgen receptor is basically a site in your body that responds to androgens, which are essentially an androgen, like testosterone, those type of things. You have receptors in your body. You have estrogen receptors. You have all these type of things. And basically it's selectively choosing which ones to act on, which ones to turn on, which to not turn on and use in layman's terms. It's been proven in studies that doesn't really work.
Doesn't do it.
So
just
again,
a clever name.
Again, yeah, exactly. And a lot of people, to be honest, in that world speak about certain drugs and call them SARMs, and they're not even SARMs. So that, again, when they're speaking of, like, I'll spit one out there. MK677. MK677 is not a SARM, but it's referred to as a SARM by almost everybody. It's actually not a SARM. It's a growth hormone secretagogue. Very different things.
Well over my head. No,
right?
But it's nice to know so this is the whole point here is reach out. We're going to have a social media there. If you have a question that some other idiot is just trying to sell you a product and they tell you it's safe, don't ever listen to the guy selling it to you.
100%.
Find someone like Braeden who's going to be like, he's going to give you, he has no allegiance to you other than he wants to. He doesn't want another negative, like a casualty in the bodybuilding world because it makes everyone look bad. Reach out. The man's just going to give you an honest approach to this.
100%.
With
absolutely.
This, not. All right, we'll move on. Are breast implants a requirement for a serious run at being a top-level female competitor?
No. Do they help? Yes. And it depends on the division, right? Yeah. Are you talking bikini or are you talking...
they didn't write that. They just put female
so I'll just get into it. Are you talking a more muscular division? I coach women's physique pros. I coach bikini pros. I've coached women bodybuilders, right? Do a lot of them have implants at all levels? Yes. Have I seen girls succeed at the highest level and win pro cards and become competitive pros without breast augmentations? Absolutely, I have. So is it an absolute requirement? No. Does it change things? I think it does have a benefit for sure. I mean, one of my pros that I coach right now, a bikini pro, everybody's probably seen her at the gym. She's a phenomenal athlete. She does not have a breast augmentation. Do I think eventually she'll probably get one? Probably, if I was guessing. Have we had the conversation that she needs it? Absolutely not. Would I tell her she needs it if she wants to be an Olympian? Absolutely not. That's a decision she has to make, because again, just like steroids, that's a very big decision for a female to make.
Yes.
Right? And once they're there, they're very complex and complicated to get removed. And at some point in your life, if you want them removed, hey, that's
Downtime.
right. And I have a perfect example of this. I mean, my wife does not use PEDs at all. And have we talked about the conversation of breast augmentations and stuff? Of course we have. I've been with her for 12 years. And does she like the idea of it? Sure. Does she want them? No, because she wanted to be able to breastfeed and do all those things, and that meant more to her. And for me, I said, you know what? I don't really care.
Yeah.
But if that's the decision you make, I respect the hell out of that.
Yes.
Because I want you to mother my child, and if you want to breastfeed my child, I also want you to. Right? So again, those
so
are...
you got to think in the future, not just in the present.
100%. Those are the type of things that you need to think about when going that route as well. I think there's been a very large thing in the industry too with girls who get breast augmentations speaking out about their, I can't even remember the name of it, but it's a sickness that comes if you get breast augmentations. And do I think some girls just regret their decisions and get them removed and say they had it? For sure. Do I think other girls actually have serious complications with them? Absolutely.
I've seen the blood work on some of my
100%, right?
friends.
So it's one of those things that you're putting a foreign object in your body. I have one in my body. I don't have implants, but I have an implantable device that's a defibrillator. And I know that shit changes your body.
Fuck yeah.
And it changes the way you move. It changes the internals. Your body doesn't like foreign shit inside it. So going back to the original question, do I think it's an absolute prerequisite? No. Do I think it helps some people? For sure.
Okay. And take that shit seriously, because I know that you can just go get a discount set put in for $1,800 in
and that will-
stuff like that. That will fuck your shit up. You could be
100%.
laid up 6 to 12 months when you go septic because you went to do it cheap. I'm not advocating for it, but if you're going to do it, research. Because I've had friends, like he said, they don't realize that was the problem.
Yeah.
3-4 years later, they're like the jaundice is setting in. Their reproductive system is shut down, and they're just shadows of who they used to be, because what was an image thing they didn't even realize was poisoning them.
100%. And there's, like I said, I mean, there's other complications with that in the bodybuilding world. If you get a very poor surgery done and you have one point in each direction or higher or lower than the other, that
Point deductions.
100%. That looks not pleasing on stage, and that will stand out, and you probably will get dogged for that, especially in something like bikini, where you're looking for a beautiful,
symmetry,
very symmetrical look, not super peeled or anything like that. You're looking for a very pretty female. Yes. Right? And that's distracting to the eye, and a judge will see that. And if you have a physique that you're fighting neck and neck with, side by side, and one of them has a breast augmentation that's been done for $100, the other one has
you can tell.
a good breast augmentation done by a real good surgeon, you'll probably lose to them.
Yes.
But again, I think there's other complications that are much more important, like you spoke to, that can cause issues. And I think another thing to think of that, if whoever's asking this question, if you are going that road and you are a competitor, is be very diligent with your recovery. Because I've actually worked with 2 females who love the gym, and they were incredible athletes, and they just want to fucking train, and they hate being down and out for 8 to 12 weeks, which is the reality of the surgery. You can't do under the muscle. You can't do like anything. Not to mention you have stitches inside and outside. If you start sweating, there's complications. And I've seen it twice with athletes that I worked with, because I've worked with tons of girls who've gotten, I had a girl who a week and a half ago got a breast augmentation done. And again, TB500, BPC 157, they work very good to help heal this kind of thing. But with that being said, again, if you take your recovery lightly and you don't take it seriously, you're probably going to have some complications. You're probably going to open up your stitches and see your implant and or have it fall out through the stitches, which is a real thing, and I've seen it happen. I've never been there witnessing it, but I've had it happen to an athlete who didn't listen, didn't take their recovery seriously, reaching overhead when they shouldn't be going overhead, doing pull downs, all that kind of stuff. Now you're talking problems, and that's going to triple your recovery time.